It's completely false, and it stems back to one thing. And it returns back to this one thing. The very reason why whole industries are built. Take this pill and lose 20 pounds. And the reason why we admire those who change and as a result improve their lives for the better is because, drum roll please. In this episode, I'll speak about change. We all want to change. There's a lot of things we know we need to improve, and that requires change. But why is it that for the most part we don't change? We may want to change. We may really want to change, yet ultimately most of us don't. Is there something we're missing? Is there something we've looked over? That's what I'll explore in this episode. So before we begin, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. So without further ado, I'm Abdurrahman, and this is episode 3 of Reflections.
I was just a young pathfinder, a street boy trying to leave that life behind us. How can I see options if I'm walking around blinded? There's angels in the ghetto, look how Allah came and find us.
Change. We all want to do it. And there's a constant attempt for people to change. You often hear people saying they will change. And in the circles I've been around, you always hear people saying, this year is going to be my year, bro. This year is going to be the one, bro. This year is my year. Or I've heard people saying in a more desperate tone that, I can't lie, I need to fix up. I need to stop doing X, Y, Z. Or in a more hopeless tone. And this is the scary one. I don't think I'll ever change. Bro, I just can't stop. Or in a tone which often inspires people. And a tone which inspires me. You hear people saying that they're not the same person anymore. They're not the same person they were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But why? But why has this occurred? Because they've been able to successfully change. They've been able to change and maintain that change. And perhaps this need for change, this need to continuously improve, is built in us. Because staying stagnant kills. Stagnant water kills the very fish that live in it. And oftentimes by not changing, by not adapting, and not moving forward, in reality, you begin to regress. Even if you're not actively regressing and going backwards, you're still regressing. And if you don't believe me, leave your house for, let's say, 6 months and see what happens. And look at the state of your home. Whilst there may not have been little kids running around and causing chaos in your home and mess in the home, and as a result actively causing it to regress, you will return back to your home and you'll see cobwebs, dust, things falling apart, mold. So what does this show? It shows that if we don't actively improve things, they start to fall apart. So it makes sense why we want to change. And oftentimes when we want to change, we are drawn to those people who have already changed, and we have a look into their lives. Perhaps in the search of that missing ingredient, we listen to stories about how people have transformed their lives in an attempt to be inspired. In my case, in my circle, and the people I've been around and the place I live in, is the typical rags to riches story that you keep hearing. Making it out the ends, leveling up, leaving the hood, from a council estate to a penthouse, from the projects to the boardroom, from the ghetto streets to the hotel suites. We hear these stories time and time again, and we see it in the form of poor athletes becoming wealthy. Just to give you a quick example, let's have a look at one of my favorite basketball players of all time, LeBron James. LeBron James was born in 1984 in Akron, Ohio, to Gloria James, a 16-year-old single mom. His father had an extensive criminal record and wasn't involved in his life. He never met his father. He had all the odds stacked against him. Life was a struggle, and he and his mom would move from apartment to apartment in the projects. And I live in the UK, so the projects, it's like the equivalent of a council estate. So if you've ever lived in a council estate or you've been on a council estate for some time, you know how it is.
How did you stay away from projects? When you think projects, I know projects from New York. You think gangs and drugs.
Right. I didn't stay away from it.
You did it?
Because I lived in it. And when I say I didn't stay away from it, that didn't mean I was associated with gangs or I was associated with drugs. But when you live in the projects and you live in those circumstances, there's nothing that you can't get away from it.
So he went from that to making millions at a young age and taking his family out of that situation through hard work, perseverance, and the ability to change. And now his mom doesn't have to worry about moving from apartment to apartment. Maybe from going to resort, but she doesn't need to worry about that no more. And now let's travel to Portugal in the year 1985, when a boy by the name of Cristiano Ronaldo was born. Cristiano growing up was very broke. His father didn't even own a car.
I guess, how many cars did your father have when you were 5?
Yeah, small cars, yeah, many.
Okay.
In home.
Toys, but did he
Yeah,
have an
toys.
actual car?
No.
He didn't even have a car.
And now that he's the Cristiano Ronaldo that we all know, Mr. CR7, Mr. Sue, Mr. I'm the best player in the world, the GOAT. Now that he's become that, he doesn't even know how many luxury and high-end cars he has.
How many cars do you have right now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know he's that wealthy. And now, let's jump into one of my favorite sports, boxing, where you'll find arguably the greatest defensive fighter of all time, with an undefeated record of 50-0. Like him or hate him, he went from being dirt broke to becoming Money Mayweather. And the examples I've given are very materialistic. And I've focused on money because whilst I don't believe that money shows any type of success, you can be broke and be successful. Even if we just look at Islam, Fir'aun, he had a lot of wealth, but by no means was he successful. So I don't mean to say that by changing and becoming wealthier, you've made it. I don't mean that, but the thing about wealth is when you go from being broke to having money, there is no denying that. It's very measurable, is what I'm trying to say. So by giving these examples, whilst I've focused on something which is, I believe in the long term, isn't that meaningful if you don't use it in the right way in terms of wealth, but it's clear that that person or these people, they've been able to change. And that's what I'm trying to focus on. Change. Because change in itself, I believe it's a skill. To be able to adapt, to be able to move forward, to be able to say, no, I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to be around these people anymore. And to actually follow through with that. That's a skill. And that's what these people have acquired. And that's why I use it as an inspiration. Or we hear change in the form of poor migrants traveling across the globe in the search for a better life. The American dream. Anyone, as long as they work hard, can have the American dream. You can have that white picket fence with a big front yard. Or we hear it in the form of the gangster, drug dealer, the guy that was doing fraud, that turned his life around and left the streets and never looked back. Or we hear it in the form of the criminal who goes to jail, but when he comes out, he doesn't ever return. He reforms, even though I don't agree with the system at the moment. Forget the system, he himself, he reforms himself. Forget the system, he reforms himself. He changes himself. And he doesn't ever return to crime. He never returns to prison. So we keep hearing these stories time and time again of people changing and improving their lives. So people often seek to change their lives. However, people often stay put because they're waiting for that right moment. The typical example here is the New Year's revolution. New year, new me. Or an interesting one is they're waiting for old age. You hear people saying, I'm going to change when I'm older. I want to enjoy life while I'm young. So the thing that's holding them back from improving their lives is ultimately something that they're not guaranteed. They're waiting for old age, yet they have no guarantee that they will see that old age. So instead of striving to improve in the current moment and focusing on the present, they hold themselves back in the hopes that one day in the future that is never guaranteed, they're somehow going to magically change. Even though old dogs don't learn new tricks, even though a life where you do the exact same things, especially if you're doing the exact same negative things, and expect yourself to transform when you're old and frail, it's just not realistic. But that's the attitude a lot of people have, and that's what holds them back. Or, here's another interesting one. People try to find a shortcut. How to get abs in 5 minutes. My body transformation in 30 days. How I made X amount of money in 1 week, and how you can too. All built and feeding off this idea of this fast food change, this instant gratification change, which simply doesn't exist. It's completely false, and it stems back to one thing, and it returns back to this one thing. Continuously returning back to this idea. The very reason why whole industries are built. Take this pill and lose 20 pounds. And the reason why we admire those who change and as a result improve their lives for the better is because, drum roll please, change is hard. Change is hard. You obviously knew that, but change is hard. Change is incredibly hard. I don't know how to emphasize it more. And anybody who's tried to make a big change in their life, which they stick to, can attest to this. But why is this? Why is change so hard? Why can't I just roll out of bed one day and just change for the better? Get rid of all my bad habits and just adopt new good ones? Because for the most part, we as people, we know what's good for us. An obese person knows what to do to lose weight. Eat less food, exercise more. They know that. They probably read every article on the matter. But then, why is obesity only increasing year by year? Surely there's something more to it than what meets their eyes. Surely there's something missing. Likewise, a smoker knows they need to quit smoking. It's not like they're unaware. It literally says it will kill them on the package. So it's not information we're missing. where we are bombarded with information. We literally live in the age of information. Yet, we still lack answers. So there must be something that's missing. There must be something that we keep overlooking each time we try to change. And I believe it's this. 80% of human behavior is automatic. Which is a big statement just to throw out there. But I took that from one of my lectures in med school. But different studies state different amounts. Regardless, a large proportion of human behavior is automatic. We can all agree on that. So when you actively try to change your life for the better, you're confronted by this massive resistance, this huge boulder which just prevents you from moving forward. You want to change your life. You want to change, but your whole environment is keeping you the same. Your friends, your family, your work, the place you sleep day in, day out, for the most part, stays consistent. So it only makes sense that the very people within those environments stay consistent as well. They stay the same as well. So what happens when that environment of yours is negative? You become shackled to your own demise, your own downfall. So in order to change, it is imperative that we change our environment, especially when you try to give up bad habits. There could be cues within your environment which cause you to repeat the same habits. Therefore, to break the perpetual cycle of bad habits or negative behaviors, we need to cut it from the root. If you have a bad habit, what you need to do, first and foremost, is to do everything in your power to make it harder for you to do that habit. And hopefully replace that habit with a good habit. And then make that habit very, very, very easy to do. So in that way, we change our environment in a way that that negative habit of yours is as far away from your daily life as possible. And we as people like taking the route of least resistance, the path of least resistance. So, and just to show this, would you rather walk up an hill which is just filled with snakes on the pathway, a very rocky terrain, just difficult to walk? Or would you rather have a nice stroll down the park with no one bothering you, in perfect conditions? We as people like taking the route of least resistance. So we can take this and apply it into our own lives to change the things that we don't want to be known by. There may be habits of yours which you hate, yet you still do it on a regular basis. You don't want that to be you, but it is you, because that's what you do on a daily basis. So in order to change that, you have to change your environment. You have to make it so that habit of yours is incredibly hard to do, and then replace it with something positive, something which you enjoy and is actually going to bring benefit into your life and make that habit very easy to do. And in that way, by taking all our negative behaviors and all our negative habits and making them very hard to do, and then taking good behaviors and good habits and making it easy to do, we can progress significantly in our lives and change for the better. Because that's what we're seeking, change. I'll elaborate on environments later, but let me just give you a brief example. So let's say a person hypothetically wants to quit drinking alcohol. And of course, I'm not an expert or nothing, but I just want to show you how you can apply the principle of changing your environment in order to change your habit. So what I would tell this person to do, a person who's not qualified, is to get rid of all the alcoholic drinks in their home. Throw it out. Throw away any old cans or bottles. pretty much get rid of anything within their environment, within their home environment, which would provide a cue for the habit to reoccur and provide the craving for the habit to occur. And if the cue or trigger is something that they just can't change, like coming back from home stressed every day, the work environment is so stressful that no matter what you do, no matter how much you meditate or take deep breaths and whatnot, you're just coming back home stressed every day. And if that's something that you can't change, and that's something which triggers you to start drinking at that point, you have to replace that habit with something else. So you're drinking in order to feel relaxed. So we must replace that habit with something else which is going to get you relaxed. Hopefully not another drug, but some type of habit which hopefully is somewhat positive. Thinking now probably some type of exercise, even if it's like video games, even though you can go too far with that. Changing it from taking alcohol to video games, I think, is a big step forward. So essentially just changing the habit in order to get the same outcome. And then I would tell them they shouldn't visit any places which would encourage them to drink. That means not going to the pub, not going to restaurants where alcohol is being served, and basically cutting ties with their drink buddies. And you might listen to this and be like, that's a bit extreme. And I'll admit, it might be a bit extreme. But I believe this could be very effective. And here's the key, works in the long term. And if a person truly wants to change, like they've had enough, and they just want to change, and they have this habit of theirs which is bad and destructive to their life, it only makes sense that they try their absolute best to get rid of that habit. So why wouldn't a person, even if this might sound a bit extreme, which maybe it is, use the most weapons and most tactics possible in order to fight their weaknesses and shortcomings? But here's the banger. Here's the part everybody misses. Even though I said everybody misses whatever, this is the part everyone misses. Here's the element that everyone misses. Please pay attention. The element that's missing is this. We live in the era of the internet and the era of the digital world. We obviously know this. You're watching this through some type of technology right now. And this is only likely to increase in the near future. Therefore, whilst we've changed the environment, there's two types of environments now. There's your physical environment, so everything that's around me, and there's your digital environment. So in this case, this person wants to drink. No, in this case, this person wants to stop drinking. And we've tackled everything in their physical environment which would encourage them to drink. But let's say this person, with the 7 hours of average screen time per day they are consuming content which is encouraging them to drink. They follow accounts on TikTok and Instagram which glamorize binge drinking. They glamorize binge drinking, partying, and consuming alcohol. They watch movies in which the main character, the cool character, drinks lots and lots and lots of alcohol. They look up to rappers who pop champagne bottles as a flex. So if the person here is struggling with some type of problem with alcohol and they want to stop, how in the world does this person expect to stay sober even if they've changed that physical environment, that this environment which they're in 7 hours per day is still the same, is still calling to that negative habit of theirs? So therefore, in the 21st century, it isn't just enough to change your physical environment, but you must also change your digital environment. Just like the things you buy end up owning you, similarly, the things you consume and the media you consume end up consuming you. So we must be incredibly careful as to the media we consume. And all these changes I'm trying to do, that you're trying to do, all these times that we're trying to fix up and become better as people, I can let you know from experience that is especially hard in the beginning. But you must move past that beginner stage in order to reap the rewards of that change. The biggest hurdle you have to jump over is that first one. And that's ultimately where you're going to face the biggest resistance. But what happens when you move forward and propel yourself past that stage? That's what I'm trying to find out. That's what I'm trying to find out in my own journey to becoming a better person, to becoming a better man. But as I do, inshallah, I'll report straight back to this camera and straight back to you guys, the viewers, and let you know my reflections. Salam.
إن أردتم أن تكونوا شامة بين الورى فاقتفوا آثار جيل للمعالي سطرا. إن أردتم أن تكونوا شامة بين الورى فاقتفوا آثار جيل للمعالي سطرا.